This ain't a PR video, but since I'm here watching this here with watching some Larry Wheels, he just won his pro card officially now. I think just a couple of days ago. He's one of the guys I've been watching pretty much since I got my laptop and the pandemic hit and we couldn't really do anything else. One of the guys I came across YouTube, social media, power lifter turned bodybuilder, was a strongman competitor and all, even gotten into some arm wrestling. One of my old favorite things I used to like to do. But this one's I think I'll just add a little bit more onto maybe my fitness resume. Things I like to do for exercise or my typical exercises I would do when I have the opportunity to say at least in the gym, the type of exercises I would typically do. Some people have their personal favorites if they're really into, bodybuilding, like fully, that's their thing, versus just, want to feel and look good and get strong. I've been in, typical gyms you go in nowadays will accommodate a professional bodybuilder, even if they have to revert back to, say, some of the older fashioned exercises. I've rarely been in I'd call them universal gyms, where you have all sorts of equipment for all different types of body parts and movements. Rarely been in one that hasn't had, I guess, all of those, even at the most scarcely, I guess, put together gyms. Like Blake Road was one of the ones that wasn't really a big, bodybuilder gym. But if you know what you're doing, you could do it. Like I said, that's my main reason I went there was because I could walk to there. It's like a mile and a half or what 2 miles away. I'd walk there, jog there from the house. But my typical routine in the gym, mind you, like I said, when I can, I've gotten into the point where I prefer full body workouts. So you may have seen one or two of the videos I put up. I think I did put one up there before I actually left there, maybe just before the pandemic, or that might have actually been just after the pandemic, or maybe one in between when they had one of them little breaks where they said, okay, it's all free and clear, then you could go back. I think I put one up around that time. But if you hadn't seen it, I think that one was on, might have been on Facebook or TikTok or something like that. I'm not using those apps anymore. So I'm on Snapchat, YouTube, and Snapchat. LinkedIn, I may have posted it on there, but I think I've even changed accounts since I actually put that up. So that should have been shut down by now. So have some of those other ones that I stopped using should have been shut down. But typically, when I do have access to the equipment I want, or let's say even when I didn't, Lake Road, we had the Smith machine. When I stopped going, they had gotten an incline bench, a standard Olympic incline bench, and they had like one or two extra benches that you could actually, elevate. You can raise the incline and decline to flat to pretty much to, standard if you want to do like, shoulders only. So what I do when I could, sometimes you gotta share equipment. You don't always get to pick and choose all the time. What you can do is you gotta just use what's there and when it's available. When I can, I'd usually start my full body with squats. That's always been, I wouldn't say my weak point, but it's one of the hardest ones for me to always get into sometimes. But I'll usually start with my squats on the Smith machine. If I'm in a regular gym, then I'd usually start with those. So I do my 3 sets. Sometimes, depending on if I plan on going heavy, I get into actually really only doing 2 sets. Time wise, energy wise, sometimes I only really get into doing 2 sets if I'm more or less on function and strength rather than, them builds. I just maybe add an extra rep or two instead of 10. Sometimes I'll do 10, maybe even 15. Not often, but I usually stick to 10. Whatever weight is comfortable enough for me to feel that 10, then that's what I usually do. So squats, whether it's the Smith or the conventional squat rack, those. Then I'd hit my legs, depending on what's available. I it doesn't really matter. Leg extension, leg curl, maybe not necessarily in that order. Then Blake Road style, we didn't have the I guess the hip flex machine or anything like that. Occasionally, if I'm in one of those, I'll go ahead and hit those sometimes even before I do my squats if I plan on going heavy, just to warm up the hips and everything a little bit more, just in case. You don't never know what might go snap, crackle, and pop when the snap, crackle, and pops come around. But those, and then after that, I get into my calf routine. If there's a standing calf machine or if there's a seated calf machine, I wouldn't always do both seated and standing at the same day. I'd kind of sometimes alternate, because especially when I was in those days, I'd still be in run mode, so I'd either be having some kind of run or sprint, which for me was enough for my calves, uphill running my hills and stuff like that, that kind of thing on my cardio or speed days. Then, depending on where I'm at, Blake Road style, if the gym was clear enough, wasn't too busy, I could go ahead and, assemble the Olympic bar and get to doing my deadlifts, conventional deadlifts with the Olympic bar. But I kind of also like doing the deadlift, well, I don't know if they call them deadlifts. I think sometimes people call them RDLs or something like that, where you use the dumbbells instead of the actual Olympic bar. But movement is still the movement, weight is still the weight. Now I know there's a difference with having the hand placement on the Olympic bar a little bit wider. You do feel something a little bit different in the back. I will say that, but it's not always a matter of choice. It's sometimes a matter of availability. So it's usually one of those. Now I've gotten into the mode now where sometimes I'll do what I've seen some of these other people do with the lighter weight. Sometimes you watch some of these girls that you can pick up a lot of their routines as well. They put one foot forward with the lighter weights and they do the same things. I think they still call them RDLs, but you place one foot ahead of the other one and then you alternate sides. I do kind of like those sometimes, especially being athletic. I think it allows for more mobility or stability for some movement, some sports. Golf, probably specifically, you need a strong back, especially if you're trying to blast the ball, long ball hitter. You like to do it, getting up in age, perhaps don't want to take any chances. Strengthen what needs to be strengthened and what feels weak. Let the body balance it out. Don't be weak and then try and be strong and find out there's a weakness that way. So that's what would be next. The deadlifts or the back. Sometimes they have this apparatus. I think there is one. Yeah, there actually is one at Blake Road. So I don't know what it's called, but it's more or less like a back flex. It's not a machine, but it's just like a station. You just hook your legs in the thing and you lean over and I just grab the Olympic plates and hold them to your chest. You just kind of bend over and then just straighten back up. Whatever that machine is called, I kind of like those sometimes. So if the deadlift bar isn't available and people got the free weights, the dumbbells that I need to actually use, sometimes if they're too light, if I don't like to use the light one, because then that means I'd have to do a whole lot more reps. If it's only strength, remember I'm still on my old fashioned 3 threes, 10s, 12, 3 sets of 10, 12. That's what I prefer to do, unless it's on a Tuesday. But those would be my back routines for my back flexes. Now, full body days, when I go straight through, then I'd be next in line. I guess it would have to be probably my lats back. So I'd either, whichever version, I'll be using wide lat pulls or combination. Sometimes I do mix it up. Wide lat pulls for build, for the V shape, and then sometimes just for mobility and some strength, I'll still go ahead and maybe just touch, maybe even just 2 or 3, reverse grip, close grip, rows with some heavier weight, and just to add some strength to it, keep some strength in it. That's also good, I found, for strength routine, strength sports, swinging and stuff like that. I like the feel it gives me, even if it's just a stretch after doing the wide lats for my lower back muscle insertions and stuff like that. I just like how it feels. It's really makes a big difference in feeling strong and being strong. Then after lats, wide lats, next up for me would usually probably be shoulders, because I'd be saving bench for laughs. So I'd hit the shoulders first so I can have my accessory muscles kind of warmed up for when I get into the pushing. So That would vary usually anywhere from a combination of wide or sorry, lateral raises, front raises, and then sometimes I get into this thing where I actually use the light weights, and instead of doing repetitions like up and down, I'll go into like a static hold where I'll just hold the weight straight out in the upper position for the lateral raise, and it wouldn't be as heavy as I would ordinarily do because I literally would hold it there. I do say a 30 minute hold. If I start with say a 10 pound, I hold it out for 10, come down and rest for 30 seconds to a minute depending on how often I be doing them. Go up again with I don't know a 15 or 20 pounds, same position, only for 30 seconds that time. Down and rest for like 30 seconds, 15 seconds. And then the final one would be like 15 seconds. So 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and that would be with like, depending on what I started with, 20, 25, 30 pounds, and I'll just hold them out, and I'll do the same thing for the front. Now, ordinarily, front might not necessarily be as strong because I typically, I guess, over the years I've done more wide laterals, but eventually after doing them regularly they do become I guess fairly close, but I do the same routine, same thing. Sometimes I'll actually flip the weights so where the hands are all more or less pointed up and down as if you're actually holding on to a bar that's like planted into the ground, so your palms are facing kind of forward, and I'll do my lat raises, my shoulder raises that way. Side laterals and front, those are more for accessory, stability motion, get some of the other muscles working in a different way just for shoulder support, integrity all around. The one I really like to do sometimes when I get into say tennis or table tennis mode, or into golfing, I'll start with light weights for my shoulders, and I'd start with say 5, 10, and a 15. If I'm not doing them often, it can get heavier, but usually not by much. I'll start out same thing, side laterals all the way out to the front, holding them out to the side, and I'll twist the bar, twist the dumbbell in my hand, like back and forth from up to down, from palms facing downward to all the way palms facing upward, and I just kind of flip it back and forth. Say, what I do, 30 times, 30 times back and forth. Put them down. Maybe say, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds rest because it's not very heavy, but it does burn if you do them and you hold them up there, right up, 5 pounds at it, sometimes maybe 10 pounds if I'm doing them fairly regular and feeling a little strong. Same thing, but for say 20 seconds, 15 seconds. And the last one would only be for like say, 10 seconds or so, depending on however many reps. Just 10 flips, I mean. So 30 flips, 20 flips, 10 flips. And that's both, at the same time. Then I do the same thing to the front. And that would be my actual full shoulder routine for that day. And then, other than that, just for balance and, get my traps in, keep my shoulders up, because my family, we got some low shoulder folks for some reason. I kind of noticed that over the years. It kind of used to irk me. So get my shrugs in, shoulder shrugs in, however many I do. I usually go fairly heavy on those because I don't know, I guess we got pretty strong traps. So I get my shoulder, shrugs in. Usually with dumbbells. I really only do them with dumbbells. I've done them now since I got my little band set and can go to the gym, but you gotta more or less gotta bound them all up together and then make something that feels somewhat heavy. And I don't like to overstretch the cords too much just for that one particular movement, but I mean it does help when I can get to the gym. Sometimes if I can, I'll maybe use some typical 5 gallon buckets or something like that. If you get two of them, weight them the same way, whatever you fill them up, sand, water, I don't know, sand and water, whatever it is you want to put in it. Add some weights, go ahead and hit those. So if it's a chest day, or like I said, sometimes after lats I'll go into curls after shoulders, hit up the the biceps, touch some curls. However, I manage to do them 3 sets or whatever, whether it's the sway bar or the typical dumbbell curls, 3 sets of 10 to 15, and occasionally if I'm going to feel some strength, I'll maybe do 2 regular sets or add some extra reps to my first two sets to where I feel somewhat of a pump, and then the last one I'll go to like a 1 rep max where I'll break it down. Say instead of a full set of 10, I'll do like say maybe 5, increase the weight, do like 3, increase the weight, and then 1 for a really heavy lift just for strength. That's the kind of thing I kind of do sometimes. I'll do that with the other steps, not say so much for squats or for say leg curls or extensions, but for typical fun power movements, I kind of do that kind of thing. Then after say shoulders and biceps, then I'll go into my bench routine or chest routine. If the typical flat bench is available, we don't have one of them on Blake Road, but if I'm depending on where I'm at, if it is there, I prefer to use that, and then I'll catch my 3 sets there. But if you got to mix and match and bounce back and forth between equipment, I'm fairly comfortable as well. Just go ahead with the flat on the dumbbells, and those actually really feel really good. So I wouldn't say always use them say per se for strength, but I notice sometimes that I do get more of a pump using those even than using the flat bench for some reason. I don't know if it's because the muscle memory, or they say mind muscle connection doesn't really connect to say be inspired enough or excited enough maybe to always get the same pump from the same movement, so I switch it up sometimes. I wouldn't always use the flat bench, so when it is available I'll alternate. One day it'll be a flat bench, and then go ahead and accessorize maybe with the inclines for the dumbbells for the upper chest. Or if there is a incline that's available, sometimes I'll alternate to that, where I'll say I'll start with that as far as my main chest workout, and then if need be I'll either finish with say a set of if I maybe touch the still same flat bench, or if there's a machine available that's similar to a flat bench feel, I might go ahead and use that. Or just sometimes a solid set of push-ups afterwards. I got to the point where I was really getting into what I'd finish after all of that with a set of say straight 50 push-ups with either feet flat on the ground, or I'll elevate my feet and hit out a solid set of straight 50. I'd gotten up to doing 50 twice a week when I was doing my full body splits, say twice a week, every 4 to 5 days, usually about every 5 days, because it really does take a lot more out of you than the typical split set where you split up body routines. And after that, then I touch my forearms. But when I do the shoulder, the ones where I do my dumbbell flips for my shoulder routines, then I kind of wouldn't really worry too much about hitting my forearms or isolating those. But then I do my seated forearm curls. I'd usually start with the back, flip them over, palms facing down. Sometimes you can't really take too much weight, so I'd probably use maybe 15, 20 pounds, depending on how often I do them. And instead of doing 3 sets of 10 with those, I'll usually try and get as close to 30 as I can, or I'll do isolated one at a time. If I get to 20 and I feel like I can't make it straight to 30, switch over, catch the other side, and then when I'm done with those, then get the last 10 or however many I have left for the other side. But I may increase the weight because I might be kind of, I guess, recovered a bit more, so I'll do it that way. Then come back and catch the other side, then flip over and catch the regular main forearm, the front. And usually those are a bit easier, so I can kind of go kind of straight to 30. If not, to increase the weight next time I do them, so I actually get as close to 30 so I could get them last few as the squeeze that really brings the pump towards the end of the set. So that's what I would typically do for my full body routine. And that's when I drive to the gym. Or, if I had to catch the bus, I'd usually ride to the gym, drive to the gym. But when no vehicle available, it kind of changes a little bit. So when I had to walk to the gym, I just kind of used that as my warm up. It'd take me maybe a half hour to just, casually walk there, or so 20 minutes to half an hour if I happen to be in run mode. Little jog there, it'd probably take me maybe 10-15 minutes to jog there, if that. Do my full set, and then if I needed to, walk and jog back. When I was really into it, I'd walk there, jog there, do my full body set. And then when I was training for, after a while, I'd gotten into doing the distance after doing that half marathon. Then I'd get into doing my little, distance afterwards. Sometimes I'd come out of there and still go and do my distance run afterwards on the road. Whatever I felt I could do, I was trying to figure out what I could do. So from where I live, if you're familiar with the area, Blake Road, I call it a loop from Blake Road, Bay Street, to where the Pigeon is on the airport road, all the way around up to Old Fort, circle back around to what's that new area, Love Beach, and then come all the way back around. And well, I live like by Orange Hill area, so I'd either usually stop there. It wasn't all the time I do it, but when I felt like it, that would be like my distance. Or then they have a crossroad where you can actually go from Bay Street through Tropical Gardens. So I call it like a figure eight. But the big loop for me was from anywhere along that loop, whether it's from the house, the hill, the corner of where we live, all the way around. I've done that one or two times. And the small loop from, say, Tropical Gardens Road all the way up to around Love Beach, Old Fort, back to the airport road, and then back to Tropical Gardens Road. That's a small loop. The other one is from that same road, Tropical Gardens, wherever I start, all the way around back to Blake Road, come up that, back to Bay Street, or just depending on which direction I was going, that would be the bigger loop of the small loop. But I always wanted to do that full figure eight where you start at one and then you cross over through Tropical Gardens, come back around, then cross back through Tropical Gardens again, and then come all the way back around. I never quite did the full one of those. I probably got maybe 2/3 of the way, but that would be what I kind of used to do. After walking or jogging there, catching my full set, which would take, when I do the full one, sometimes like an hour and a half or so, depending on how much equipment was available. It could be up to sometimes 2 hours if you got to wait and stuff like that for things, machines to be available. But after a typical hour and a half or so, full body weight set, not really going easy, full body weight set, then I go ahead and hit my distance run on the road when I was in distance mode. So that would have happened probably, maybe, I don't know, at one point, seemingly every 1 to 2 weeks, sometimes every 2 to 3 weeks, or maybe once a month. And when I wasn't doing those, I'd be doing my hill sprints, which was the equivalent of what I would call the 360. Full ones usually, or by that time I kind of modified them because I didn't really need to do the full side or anything like that. But I still kind of do the same thing now, but just not to the extent for trying to build up endurance, more so than just being flexible with being able to increase speed and stuff like that, just in case somebody wants to play some kind of something, or I might want to play some kind of something, whether it's tennis or whatever else, whatever, it's cross training. So flexibility, adaptability, that's more or less what my routine kind of encompasses when I'm in the gym. Since I haven't been in the gym, I got my video up there, if it's still up there, where I do my full routine with the bands that I have now. So it still involves mainly body weights. If I got the 5 gallon bottle available somewhere, I'll do my squats with those. Just hold it up in front of me, kind of sideways, like you're holding a heavy baby, and just squat. So you get up to the point where I think I was doing, I guess, 30 or so at one time. Then I start switching them to lunges. Reverse lunges, step back down, and then step back up, alternating sides after warming up with a few squats. It got the attachment on it so you can place it in a door jamb and hook it on so you can get your leg curls and leg extensions in, or whatever you find you could connect it to. You can get your leg curls, leg extensions. If you might need to get a little bit creative to get something similar to, I guess, an actual deadlift, so you can hook it onto something low and stand back enough, and then you just, kind of lean forward like how you do on the seated cable rows in the gym, and then you just kind of, flex up. It's close to a deadlift, but it ain't exactly the same. But when you don't have anything, it's better than nothing. But that's the kind of stuff I usually would do. And then everything else with the band set is more or less the same. Only thing that would be different is the actual bench press. But if you stretch the thing across your back, I got one of these things in Sports Center where you can actually hook on like tension cords across your back and hook them onto these like little hand straps that you can use for adding weight and tension and stuff like that for your push-ups when you can't get to push anything heavy like a standard bench or something like that. So I got into doing those, but it broke. So it's just I don't actually use that one anymore, but you can always alternate hands. So you got two hands on the floor, but it doesn't mean you have to push both the same way. So you can actually focus intensity on one side, one arm, whilst being stable, having the other arm hand stabilizing. And then it's just like doing a one-handed push-up, which kind of, I wouldn't say it doubles the amount of weight that you push in, but it does increase it a lot more. So that adds some more strength sometimes. That's what I do now, really. Yeah, I got some other little gimmicks and stuff I do for pushing strength and that kind of thing, but since I don't have access to those all the time, or at least not for right now. I haven't been doing those, so it doesn't stop anything. Focus more on the building and the looks than the strength. Maybe that's what God needs me to do right now, so that's what I do. That's the trainer. Yep, that's the secret. God's my trainer. Well, amongst everything else he is, but can't find another trainer better than him. So that's what I kind of do. Shoulder routine, I say, is the same. The only thing that is missing with the band set I do right now, conventional squats, which I can still go ahead and add some more chords to the thing if I really wanted to, but it's hard to get the hand position because they get pretty heavy. Trying to get your hands into the upright position to, assimilate actually holding an actual squat bar as you go up and down. And then the bench press. But shoulder work, all the same. Rows and, rear rows and stuff like that, all the same. Curls, all the same. In fact, even a little bit better, I think, because it maybe allows for a bit more better movement. Only thing is the tension isn't exactly the same on the way down. But if you place your feet right between the straps and spread them wide, you can get, close to the same amount of tension. And I can carry my gym with me in my backpack wherever I go. It's just one of the great things. You can't lug a whole gym around behind you with conventional weights. Naturally, that's not really, possible like that, technically. But it is portable, so that's why I've gotten into keeping that with me, even if you got to replace a couple of the bands here and there from wear and tear, stuff like that. I still have my same set from pandemic time. As soon as they said things were shutting down, that's one of the last things I got before we couldn't go nowhere. And I still have it. I've replaced a few of the bands, got some heavier ones, stronger ones. One or two have popped, but they still going pretty strong. The ankle straps, shoulder straps, I've had to replace those, but the bands, believe it or not, are actually still going pretty strong for the most part. I could see some wear and tear on them. I don't know how long they'll hold up, but they're not expensive. The whole set cost me less than $50 in Nassau. So you could imagine you get them online, or somebody where you can probably get a full set for in the States, but maybe even some better straps or grips or something like that, or more weight for maybe $30-$40. There's no fat or duty on exercise equipment, so that's why I took the chance and got ordered mine before things shut down. Thank God. So one of the other things I like to do, cross training. You already know I like to run. Everybody around here who happens to be in my vicinity at some point, they're gonna say they see me running. Oh, what are you doing? They might call the police and all them kind of things. What is this running through the neighborhood? Like they never seen exercise or had to Google exercise before. Exercise doesn't stop after PE class in school, guys. Some of y'all know that. Some of y'all come to the gym to find out why the rest of us never stop. And what you can do to feel close to what like you used to feel like. Anyway, yeah, I like to run. I also like to swim. So you'll see me sometimes when I can position myself sometimes where I actually can get access to a pool, because I'm not staying where I used to stay, where we got a little pool up top there. So I've actually been swimming in the sea for the last probably month or so, for at least a few times. So we had a little mishap here where somebody had a little boating accident and water got a little, I guess, bloody and stuff like that. So we all know what that means when that kind of thing. At least those of us that's wise enough to be hip to, you know, semen type stuff. You don't go in the water after things like that happens for a little while because folks in there investigating, I guess you could say. And y'all know who I mean by folks. We just finished talking about that in the last video. So until them guys out there swimming around and finish doing their investigations and inquiries or whatever else, stay clear of the water for a few days. So I had to go back and catch me another little run since I, wasn't able or comfortable to go back in the water for the last probably week or two since that happened. But maybe in another week or two, I'll be back to mixing it up. One swim day, one run day, mixed into whatever else I could do for my, regular strength and fitness. What else? Y'all seen the ping pong video. So that's another thing I like to do, but them old heads in there don't necessarily seem to always like me going in there and I guess running them around and stuff like that, or they're probably tired of, thinking they could beat me. So I go back and check in on them every now and again, see if they got anything new, nice and tasty, more up to my style of, speed type of play. If not, I just go around and hit around some of the same dudes sometimes because they still really good anyhow. But I just kind of feel bad sometimes trying to play at the tempo I like to play, and some of them little elderly, so they ain't gonna blame me for no flicking heart attack. Me going in there and saying, "Oh, he's playing against Nigel," I didn't answer them kind of questions. Thankfully, some of them is police and stuff like that. So, and anything like that happens, somebody missing, grab their chest, they can know it ain't me. Even if they're playing against me, it wasn't personal. But that's one of the things I like to do. Y'all know I like to golf. Y'all see my golf videos. What else I like to do for fitness? Beach volleyball, I was big in that back in the day, but they then took down the courts we used to have easy access to that was, fairly comfortable and, professional style, I guess you could say, where we could actually go and have a solid game without having to worry about diving into no glass bottles broken up in the sand and all them kind of things, whatever else might happen, or playing on a beach itself, whereas, just sloping down. I play like that sometimes, but after getting more serious with it and, wanting to go pro and all them kind of things, it wasn't necessarily as fun. Now, spring break time, when, like my boys to say, when the chicas come to town and there's the beach full of bikinis and G-strings and stuff like that back in the day, sure, I don't care if you can play beach volleyball on the concrete and all, it'd be more, it'd still be kind of fun. But I like pro beach volleyball style, measured out courts, lined out courts and everything. Rules and regulations. So, yeah. Sports wise, I always say I like my stuff regulated. Cheating and stuff like that, I feel if you gotta cheat, I don't necessarily feel like I need to play with you, but I could try beat you going through the rules, using the rules. What's the point? If I was to win cheating, I wouldn't feel cool about it anyhow. So, but I would feel cool beating somebody if they was cheating like that. So, but most of the guys we typically used to play with, kind of, I guess, similar. They don't mind playing if it's just a little pickup game, just for a little, exercise or whatever. But when it's time to play, like seriously, I like official like rules, or as close to it as we could get. Pool ain't really like an exercise sport, but ain't no really fitness required, for shooting pool. Table tennis, it does take a lot out of you, especially if you play, seriously. Guys could be in there playing for like 2 or 3 hours a night or more sometimes. What else we used to do, or I still do? I don't play no baseball or softball or nothing like that. They didn't cancel the church leagues and stuff like that. They quote unquote used to have back in the day that we used to play after you come out of school, and I didn't like it say that much to feel the need to say go find a league or team with all the other stuff I was doing. So doesn't mean I can't play it, but it's not one of those that's really a big exercising kind of thing. It's a sport, it's fun, but you don't build muscle playing baseball or softball unless you in the gym working on, how to swing stronger or throw harder or run the bases faster, that kind of thing. So technically, I don't need to be there to be better at it. Just doing it alone is just, makes you better at that. I haven't swung a bat now in probably feels like maybe close to 30 years, if that. What else we do? Cycling. I left my bike at my aunt's house, so I don't even have that here now to say ride around, or even if it's just to commute. I always say I'm supposed to go back and get it. Maybe I need to go take a trip there and actually really go and pick it up and ride it back now, especially since I haven't been at work the last 2 weeks, so I could get around. So you may see me probably pop up there maybe tomorrow and just ride it back, just so I can have somewhere to do. Then I might decide to say pop up in Club One and maybe catch a full routine or you know some stuff I've been missing, bench or some squats or something like that. Every now and again, somehow I don't get the feeling those guys who been managing the place kind of like me there for some reason. Not that they had any problems with me per se, but who knows? They seem kind of weird, so I've been kind of avoiding going in there. What else we do? Swimming, exercise, running. I've been getting to lift water up and down for the last 2 or 3 weeks, so I feel a bit more rested and gotten back into a bit more to just the band stuff lately. Felt like doing some push-ups. I might just touch some shoulders, maybe catch the push-ups tomorrow, and then possibly maybe hit the bar out there at the park and catch some pull-ups. Maybe see how it goes. Gotta really kind of pick and choose your movements sometimes if your body's still trying to regulate itself hormonally and all them kind of things to get your sleep patterns and all that back right. Sometimes you really gotta shut it all down, and however long it takes for the reset to really kick in, let it take that time and kick in. The world ain't really going nowhere. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that, but it ain't like you're gonna miss out on anything. Taking a few days off to reset, it's harder sometimes to keep going through the breaking down to the point where you can't get back up. You totally break down. So to avoid that, take however much time it takes off. When things got really bad, I really shut down for probably a good 2 years or so before I actually started getting back into, actual real strength and, conditioning routines. After all that shit, get your nutrition right. Find where you can get good nutrition. Nowadays, it seems like you have to take supplements, so make sure you can get to them, afford them, or know how to eat for what you want your body to do. So, what else? I walk a lot. If you're catching public transportation, buses and stuff like that, they don't always drop you right at your doorstep where you're going. So, I've been footing it out quite a bit, which is kind of normal for me. So, that's this. I haven't really ever owned a vehicle here. So, thank God the place is small. You could actually get around on foot if you actually drastically really really have to in a rush. Yeah, there's some places that's far, but if you plan and strategize, you could get around. Might take a while. You might reach there sweaty, so you plan to go places where sweat is acceptable. Luckily, I chose the career path that I was put on. Luckily, God put me on the career path He had me on. Let's see. I think that's pretty much all I kind of do at the moment right now for exercise. Not a whole lot else. When I can get, in front of a punching bag, something like, if the gym ain't too crowded, if you hit a punching bag. So I found when I was in Orlando, those things are loud. They sound like flicking gunshots, bombs and stuff going off. Somebody start punching on one of them on the other side, and I realized what it may have been sounded like when I used to hit the bag over there. That shit is flicking. If you ain't used to it, flicking startle you. But if I get in a position where I can actually get a bag, I won't use the actual typical boxing gloves because those would make the flicking firecracker sounds. I got some, had some old wraps. I still got my MMA gloves somewhere around here. Those aren't as loud, but I'll touch up the bag. I like to, get my little punches and kicks in still. Just for flowing, still my little usual fitness. They had one of those at the Defense Force gym when I used to go there a while back. So, and that one's it's got a little bit of weight to it. I don't know if it's maybe an 80 or 100 pound bag, but the lighter ones ain't really all that cool. But if that's all they got, just the movement alone is pretty cool. So I just do my little shadow boxing routine. The bag ain't gonna hit me back like that. So when I go home, I'ma look like I ain't been in no fights. Now my body able to do some offensive stuff if hopefully some little something. But at the end of the day, I ain't come home no ugly. That's a Bahamian word, ugly. You don't always say things the way they're supposed to. Ugly and ugly when you're in the Bahamas means the same thing. Not that it's a name or anything like that, but if you hear somebody say ugly, that ain't nobody's name. That's just how we talk sometimes. So when you're hitting the bag, you don't come home no ugly up. What I really need to do is find somebody to hold these flicking pads for me. I know I offer kickboxing, but sometimes I like to be on the other side of the pads and actually working on my little flows and stuff like that too. See if how good I can get. I was one of them used to be on the bed when them karate movies used to be on back in the day. Them bouncy beds and karate movies go hand in hand when you were a young child, bouncing around trying to do little jump kicks and stuff like that. Kind of too big to really be jumping up and down in his bed, but one of my clients got me into doing some basic capoeira moves and practices when I first got home in the gym. So I got into doing a little bit of those. Those are really good for exercise too, especially for lower body strength. Really good for lower body strength, building quads and stuff like that. Dude had some huge quads. I'm trying to figure out. I never seen this dude lift no weights or nothing like that really in per se in the gym. I know he likes to jog, but then I found out, oh, he's a capoeira master. So I linked up with him right away. And then took one or two little sessions with him, and kind of incorporated some of that stuff into what I ordinarily do, like my squats with the 5 gallon bottle. Yeah, so it's real cool. I need to go probably try and look him up now, see if he's still in town. Probably maybe catch another lesson or two, see if I could maybe work out some kind of something. But yeah, that's one of the things I got into liking to do. Plus, we used to run sometimes together too. Showed him my little run routine, how to do it and everything. Actually went to the track once, I think, once or twice with him when I was trying to get speed night up and running. It seems like it was only 3 people really interested in doing it. One other person showed up for a speed day, speed run. But I don't know. Maybe I should try and seeing if I could put it together again now. What else I do? I think that's pretty much it. Not a whole lot to do when you're here where we are. You're either in a club, in a gym, doing basic stuff on a team, or if you're done graduated from a lot of that, go back and check in with whatever little stuff you used to do back in the day, see how much has progressed, somebody up to your standard. Maybe catch a session or two training with them, see what you can learn from them, see what they might be able to learn from you. Keep it moving, keep it elevating.